Good afternoon. My name is Ilenia Aguilar, and I welcome every single one of you today to this important conversation, a conversation with Dr. Carmona, who I will be sharing his bio shortly, and our future leader, a high school student, Garileni. She is a student at Barry Goldwater High School, a junior. We are honored that you are here today. And for those of you who are not available to attend, we are recording this, so you may be watching it as a pre-recorded webinar. But thank you for taking the time and the time to be with us to learn and to hear from these two very important voices. I will start with the bio for our esteemed Dr. Carmona. He was born to a poor immigrant family in New York City. He experienced homelessness, hunger, and health disparities during his youth. These experiences greatly sensitized him to the relationships among culture, health, education, and economic status, and ultimately shaped his future. After dropping out of high school, Dr. Carmona enlisted in the US Army in 1967, where he received a GED. By the time he left active duty, he was a Special Forces combat decorated Vietnam veteran. He then pursued a college degree and entered medical school at the University of California, San Francisco, where he won the prestigious Gold Cane Award as a top graduate. Well, I'm super impressed so far, and thank you for your service, Dr. Carmona. And your story really resonates with mine as an immigrant myself, and having to drop out of high school and then eventually getting to college to the University of Arizona. So, and I can relate to all of the experiences that you had to go through when you are, a child who's experiencing poverty. Dr. Carmona became a surgeon with a subspecialty in trauma, burn, and critical care, and was recruited to Tucson to establish the first trauma system in Southern Arizona, which he did successfully. Later, while working full-time as a hospital and health system CEO, he earned a master's degree in public health policy and administration at the University of Arizona. Dr. Carmona served for over 35 years with the Pima County Sheriff's Department in Tucson, including as deputy sheriff, detective SWAT team leader, and department surgeon. He is one of the most highly decorated police officers in Arizona, and his numerous awards include the National Top Cop Award, the National SWAT Officer of the Year, and the National Tactical EMS Award. Dr. Carmona is a nationally recognized SWAT expert and has published extensively on SWAT training and tactics, forensics, and tactical emergency medical support. Dr. Carmona has also served as a medical director of police and fire departments and is fully qualified peace officer with expertise in special operations and emergency preparedness, including weapons of mass destruction. In 2006, Vice Admiral Carmona successfully completed the statutory 4-year term as Surgeon General and was named Vice Chairman of Canyon Ranch, CEO of the Health Division, and President of Canyon Ranch Institute. Dr. Carmona continues his Canyon Ranch leadership role as a Chief of Health Innovations. He also serves on several community and public corporate boards and works with private equity and venture capital firms to identify emerging science and technology to translate to market for economic and public benefit. Wow, that's super impressive. You have done it all and have so much experience. We're so honored to have you here today. And I will briefly introduce Garileni. I think it is crucial that we center youth voices in the fight for environmental and public health justice, as they bring fresh perspectives, bold leadership, and a deep sense of urgency to the challenges we face today. One such leader is Garileni, a junior at Barry Goldwater High School, who has spent the past few years advocating for menstruation education and products, defending reproductive rights, and raising awareness about the intersection of health and the environment. Garileni's passion for advocacy exemplifies the power of young leaders in driving meaningful change, reminding us that the future of environmental justice depends on the voices and actions of today's youth. And thank you both for being part of today's webinar with me, Ilenia Aguilar, and Moms Clean Air Force. We're very excited to engage in the conversation. That's very important, and this is related to air quality as a public health issue and how this impacts Arizona families. Dr. Carmona, could you please explain how air pollution affects our health, particularly children and expectant mothers?
Happy to do so. Thank you. And it's something that is near and dear to my heart. Something I teach also at the College of Public Health at the University of Arizona and elsewhere. So the simple answer is just if we look around, we're breathing the air all the time. The air we breathe gets into our body and it's metabolized. And if the air you're breathing contains contaminants, contains chemicals, contains a whole host of things that can cause problems, that can lead to disease. For instance, in the Hispanic community, especially the Puerto Rican community, they have the highest rates of asthma in the country. And so there are many things that we take for granted that the air we breathe is clean, but often it's not, depending on where you live. If you live near a factory that's putting out chemicals all the time, if the weather is bad and you trap bad things in the atmosphere and you breathe them in, that can cause problems as well. So there are, books written about this, papers written about this, and it's one of the things that we need to pay more attention to so that we can optimize our health and prevent any diseases that can be caused by or exacerbated by breathing air that is of poor quality.
Thank you. And you answered part of my next question. And thank you for bringing that up. As someone who has grown up in several areas of our state, I will say that, when you are living in poverty, it's most likely for our Latino communities or Hispanic communities to be, living next to like freeways or high trafficked areas. So that does impact, the air quality, and just noticing, how it impacts, not only my own health and triggers my asthma, but seeing how it impacts children who are school aged as well. What do you think are the biggest health risks for families living in these high pollution areas?
As you said, living in areas where the air is not as good as it should be, like if you're next to the highway, you're next to where there's lots of traffic. And so you get all of that carbon dioxide in the air and other fumes that are coming from factories, cars, etc. And you breathe them in. And as you said, often you'll find these problems in areas where you have people that don't have the means to move to a nicer area, that don't have the means to make the changes in their life because they're struggling. And because of that, there's a higher disease burden, which causes a higher cost of health care, which has children missing school. I mean, it's just a rippling effect across the total environment that we need to correct.
Thank you, Dr. Carmona.
Dr. Carmona, as a student, I see many of my friends struggle with asthma and allergies. Why do you think conditions like asthma are more common in our communities, and what can be done to address these issues?
Well, first and foremost, we have to look at the genetics. So in some cases, the diseases can be inherited from family members. For instance, in Hispanics, especially Puerto Ricans, you see a high degree of asthma. Now, some of that may be inherited, but some of that may be because you're living in areas where the air quality is poor, where it's a stressful environment, you're not eating the best foods. So all of those things become variables that contribute to the asthma or other pulmonary disease or other diseases as well. So in order to correct that is to make sure the environment we live in is optimized for a good air quality.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I know that Maricopa County is one of the most contaminated counties, one of the worst air qualities in the country. I think we are fifth in the country. And I do thank you for also mentioning like living in food deserts and like the intersection between, physical health and access to quality foods and genetics and our environmental factors, because that does really contribute to these serious health effects that we don't usually think are interconnected, but they are. So thank you for all of that information. We know that Latino families are more likely to live near sources of pollution. We've talked about that. What are some of the systemic reasons behind this and what can be done about it?
Well, the fact is that there's a direct relation with income and education. So the more education you have, the less likely you are to smoke, the less likely you are to make bad decisions and live in a polluted area. But when you're poor, when you have a lower education, you don't have those choices. And often those neighborhoods are ones where the air quality is poor. The buildings you live in may not be the best. The heating, cooling may not work. The paint in the buildings could be lead paint from the old days. There's a whole host of things that are environmental in the built environment and the external environment and breathing air that contribute to disease, including asthma, pulmonary diseases, as well as other disease.
Thank you. There are many of our community members who, let's say we lack the academic education or access to education because, of systemic issues. What do you think, a parent, and I'm representing the voice of parents as a mom of a 21-year-old and a 16-year-old, what can we do or to, for my family, for some of them who don't have the academic, you know, um, e- education, what can they do to, I guess, better prepare themselves or know how to deal with what's happening to their children or their bodies?
Well, I think the most important issue is education. And I think, folks like you and Catalini, who are willing to put themselves out there and raise awareness for this and provide opportunities for moms and children to learn more. So it starts in the home, but also schools should be educating the students as well as to how to live safely, how to eat healthily, how to understand where pollution comes from and what can we do to diminish pollution, whether it's from cars, whether it's from factories, whether it was from other sources. So all of those things are most important. But it starts with the education, and you as a mom and EcoMadres who are focused on this are a very important part of the solution in making sure that you're educated, because once educated, then we can connect to those people who have the power to change the laws to make sure that our communities become safer. What Carilene is planning to do in the future, to be an advocate.
Thank you so much for that. So many young people as myself don't know where to start when it comes to like environmental issues. What advice do you have for students like me who want to take action?
I think it's a great question. I think the first thing is get educated as to about air quality is also a challenge as well. Where you live, the heating, the ventilation, the filters, all of those things. People are now more aware after COVID that there are filters in buildings and air conditioning, cleaning ducts and things like that. But the important thing for you is look at your environment where you spend your time and where is the air coming from? Okay, and what pollution is in the air? Same with water, same with the building you're living in. But since we're talking about air pollution today, assess your environment for the quality of air. You can go to most health departments and be able to get a reading on what the quality of the air is where you live, because the health departments will test that. And if it is air that is less than desirable, well, where is it coming from? Is it because you're living in a very high traffic area and there's a lot of emissions from cars? Are there other reasons? Is it the weather trapping pollutants in the air and not letting them get out into the atmosphere? So there's a learn more about the science, learn about it specifically in the areas that you live, and then you will be a force to be reckoned with when you're armed with the information, and then figuring out where do you need to go at a local level, a state level, or national level to bring the changes necessary to optimize the health of all people.
Thank you. That is so important. I think even, you know, through my journey as a parent, I had my first son, very young, and I had not achieved a college education at the point. But what I did know was that I cared deeply about the environment, and I specifically have moved into districts where there are electric school buses. And in my previous life, I was a school board member, and I was able to bring the first work with other organizations. Of course, this wasn't just me, it was a matter of the board members and the community who opted to get our first electric school bus. But when I lived in Tucson, my child and then children attended a school district where there were community gardens, where children did learn where food comes from, where there are electric school buses, where there are solar panels. Because even without my formal education, I knew that I cared about the environment. I also cared about the air that we are breathing and how that impacts. In many of my experiences as a former undocumented person, I got to live in Mexico City, and it was very heavily polluted when I lived there. So I got to see the impacts of how that affects our health. And I wanted to make sure that my kids went to school, not only that, had, a curriculum that was up to standards to what I believed in at the time, which was dual language ecology, but also that they believed in electric school buses, because moms are usually the ones who wait um, by by their children, waiting for the school bus, and we're the ones inhaling the pollutants. And that was something that I paid attention to, and in the work with moms that I'm honored to do, we advocate for that electrification of school buses and ensuring that school districts are moving towards that direction, because we see that, there, you mentioned it earlier, when students are, whether they're triggered, they have asthma or allergies, they're less likely to go to school. So we have a problem with student attendance. So this is a way to address part of the many problems. But thank you for bringing that up.
Well,
And
I might add, Yelenia, that not only are the moms front line, the moms in our country are the ones that make most of the health decisions in the family. Get making sure the kids are healthy, make sure they get their immunizations, make sure they go to the doctor. So the moms coming together can do great things. Look at what a bunch of moms did with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, for instance. It started local, went national, and because of that, we have much safer roads today. And we can do the same thing for health.
absolutely, and that's why I love the work that moms do. There's this organization is just full of, really passionate moms who and grandmothers, and some who are not mothers but care about children and the health of all. But I do admire the work that moms does in all of its capacity. I've never seen such driven, intelligent, passionate women. And there is a saying that is true. I don't believe, and I could be wrong. Isabel Allende is one of my favorite authors, but she always says, like, if you, and maybe she took it from somewhere else, I could be wrong, but if you invest in a mother, she invests in her community. And that is very
Yeah.
true for the work that we do at Moms. It's true with the work that I've seen other moms do in communities. Like, they're, if you invest in her education, she is going to improve the lives not only of her children, but all children. And I say that because I've seen it happen over and over. And I'm just so grateful to be part of such an outstanding organization that does deliver. And there are other groups like the one that you mentioned, and other mom led groups that are making a difference in the policy space as well. And that's the way that we make a real difference. Karileni, did you have any questions or for Dr. Carmona?
I think my main question was what I can do, and I think you pretty much touched on that. So I think I'm all good.
Thank
Well, I
you.
would say, make a comment to Lenny. I hope that besides that, the power is in you organizing, getting your friends involved, getting a group of your colleagues, and what we call force multiplication, bringing the people together, and then have the right narrative and the message. So you alone can do a lot, but you alone with a team can do a lot more. So I would say take all that knowledge and passion and spread it around and get many more young people focused on what the problems are. In this case, pollution for you, but it's the same model you'd use for anything you want to change for the betterment of society.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of had like an ignorant point of view. I always saw this as like the environment is like a small issue. It isn't as big as like reproductive rights and all these other big policy issues. But in reality, the improving of air quality isn't just an environmental issue. It's a critical matter of public health, social equity, and community well-being.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. So now get out there and fire up all your classmates and get them with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carmona and Garileni. And just to end, I would say that, we can have all the issues that we can fight for. There's reproductive, you choose, but if we don't have a planet and clean air and clean water, we are not going to be able to fight for anything else. So I believe that the environment is the most important issue of our lifetime. And I do believe that it does start at school, and that it starts at home as well for those of us who are privileged enough to be able to share these moments and educate our children. But I know that that is not true for a lot of families. It wasn't true for my mother, my family, my mother who had a sixth grade education and was just trying to survive. So I know that, we all as a community can work together to educate each other and to advocate and organize and push for the changes that we need, not only for ourselves but our future generations. And there are 3 generations represented today, and I am just so honored to be part of this conversation that is so important and critical. And I not only say this because I am part of Moms Clean Air Force and EcoMadres, but also because I truly believe that we all deserve clean air, and our my future generations and Garileni's and Dr. Carmona's also deserve, and everyone deserves clean air. So thank you very much. You can find more information about Moms Clean Air Force by going online. We have the Spanish, the Latino programmatic work that we do with EcoMadres, trying to make sure that Latino communities are also engaged and in their language. So that's EcoMadres. And we have resources on our website and petitions that you can sign and educational materials. I'm not sure if Dr. Carmona and Garileni want to leave with a final message. I'm so grateful for your time. That is my last message.
Lenny, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything. But sorry, I'm so sorry. But if there is one message that I would like to let be known is that there's numerous ways to get involved, and it all starts at the local level. It doesn't have to be big. You don't have to try to call up representatives, but you can start with the people in your community and start talking, start networking, because as you said, Dr. Carmona, there is power in education, and education drives change forward.
Yep. And I would say in closing, I am empowered by seeing both of you and the potential that you have to change the world and make it a better place. We're pretty divided now and struggling in so many areas, yet we have much more in common as humans than we spend our time on the little things that are different and often divide us. And a nation divided cannot stand united. So it's going to take your generation and your friends and everybody to change, because it is a democracy. And so I feel good that you're here and passionate about this at your age in high school. And if you can, let this go viral and get all your friends involved, I think you can make change in most anything.
Thank you.
Thank you both. So
Thank
nice
you.
to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Dr. Carmona. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And I really love hearing your story and your bio over and over, because I can relate to it completely.